Welcome to Filmmakers Feedback, a program brought to you by Film Scoring Tips. I am Giovanni Rotondo and I will be your host for this series. The episodes are available as podcasts on all the major platforms and in video form. Please visit filmscoringtips.com to find more info about that. The mission of this show is to better understand the relationship between composers and filmmakers, and to find ways to increase one's chances creating long-lasting professional bonds. In today's episode, filmmaker Alexander Bodin Saphir and I will discuss various topics, such as whether or not he likes working with composers capable of writing in many different styles, and what's the secret recipe to put together the perfect composer's showreel. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Alexander, thank you so much for being the first guest of Filmmakers Feedback.
You're welcome. I'm very, very honored.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Filmmaker can mean many things. What do you do?
I think in this day and age, it's a good thing to be many things. I think that I direct, I write, I produce, and I used to be a little ashamed that I did everything. I like to edit as well, although I work with some really great editors. But I feel that knowing a little bit about everything and being able to do everything to a certain level, I think has been a great, really useful for me as a filmmaker. So different projects, I'll do different things. I won't write, direct, edit and produce on a single project. I'll spread that around various projects. I'll do one or two of those things for each project. But being able to, knowing that I can write and having experience of writing has made me a better director. Directing has made me a better producer. And knowing the basics of editing has made me a much better writer and director. So I felt that it all feeds in. The advent of digital for me, it was like my learning curve was exponential at that point. It became like a hockey stick because I could take a photo, look at it in that moment and say, okay, it needs to be reframed, or the focus length or the focal length isn't quite right, or the exposure isn't quite right. And yes, I'll take 1,000 photos where before I was only taking 3, but I was learning so much. And I feel like the age of digital filmmaking is similar. That you can write something, shoot it the next day, and edit it the next day, see how it's working, see how it's not working. That afternoon you can go and reshoot something. I mean, it's completely changed the nature of filmmaking.
And I must say, in the music business, things are pretty relatable to everything you said. The technology has changed. I'm not talking too much about the distribution of music, which has, completely crushed the model that was there before. But even being a composer or a music producer, songwriter, is much easier in terms of technology today, and at the same time it allows many more voices to be heard. What kind of music do you like to listen to?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and the annoying answer is I'm very eclectic. I'll listen to everything from Mozart all the way through to some really underground. I mean, I'm obsessed at the moment with trap and with drill music at the moment. So I grew up on Jethro Tull, so dad rock and David Bowie. So I mean, I will listen to anything really. And for me, it's much more about the emotion that it creates. So there are some songs, obviously, and some musicians that you listen to at certain periods in your life that have a very strong emotional connection to. So when you listen to that song, you find yourself being transported. I mean, music in many ways is a time machine, especially when you have songs that mark certain moments in your life. And you listen to it and you're totally brought back to that moment in your life. I remember being obsessed with Earthling, David Bowie's Earthling, in 1996, 97. And whenever I listen to it now, I'm a teenager
You're back
again.
there.
You know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
And is this something you look for in a composer's score when you assign a project to a composer? Do you hope now and then to get those specific feelings linked to a particular moment of your life?
Well, I don't think. I mean, that's asking a lot of a composer. I wouldn't put that kind of pressure on a composer. I would say that I'm looking for emotion. I would say that I'm looking for to be moved. That doesn't mean that it has to be music that reminds me of certain moments in my life. It needs to be music that that is meaningful and that I can relate to. And that tends to mean, I mean, does it have a structure that I feel holds me? Does it have emotion that I feel moves me? And yeah, I mean, look, every piece of music is different, and every piece of music needs to be engaged with on its own terms. And a music just for music's sake is one thing. A music to accompany a piece of film is, of course, a very different thing. And it needs to do a lot of different things, including moving you, but also being in keeping with the visual component that it's in dialogue with. And that's really key, that it has to, you know, film composition is an incredible art form, and I'm in awe of composers because they are able to take visual cues and turn them into auditory cues that then create a dialogue. And look, film is all about collaboration. So you want to, you know, I think the best composers collaborate with obviously the director, but also with the editor, with the sound mixer. I mean, depending on the project, I mean, I love to have as many people as possible on set, if not on location. So I always have my editor.
Do you ever have the composer on set? Has it ever happened?
I have had, and it's been great. I've also had projects where we just couldn't get the composer on set, but I love it when the composer's on set, if only just for a day or two.
When you approach a new project, you know, let's say it's a new genre for you,
Yep.
Do you go and look for composers that are proficient, that do market themselves as proficient in that particular genre, that are famous for that particular genre, or are you open to composers that are that can write in many different styles?
Okay, I mean, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
I don't see composers, in my experience, composers just doing a single genre. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe there are composers out there who just do a certain kind of.
There are two philosophies.
When you say genre, give me an example.
I mean, for instance, the composers doing animation, there tends to be a little bit of pigeonholing in the industry, where it can be both good and bad for you as a composer, because on one hand, you start being asked a lot for that kind of music, but on the other hand, you miss out on other projects, and probably you are proficient in other genres as well.
Look, I totally understand. I mean, this is the nature of human beings. When somebody sees or hears something good, then they will say, well, I have a project that is similar, and I will pitch that project to that person. So, for example, when we made this music documentary, it's about a gay HIV positive man. I got pitched a whole bunch of documentaries about gay and or HIV positive people.
Makes sense, yeah.
And I got pitched a lot of documentaries, and I said, well, you know what, I've done that film now. I would like to try something else. But that's me. Some people feel comfortable building on whatever they've already achieved, and doing the, not necessarily retreading the same the same thing, but building on it. Personally, maybe that's why I like to write, direct, produce, and do lots of different things. I like to change it up. So I love the fact that we did an animation, a series of animations that I've never done before. I love the fact that I'm working at the moment on a TV drama in a world that I know nothing about. I love the fact that that all of my projects are very different and are really different. And for me, that's exciting because I wouldn't want to
Makes sense. Yeah.
do the same thing. But I mean, I understand that there are composers that make a name in a certain niche. And if that's how you're inclined to work, then great, go, more power to you. But why would you? Why not expand and try lots of things? Because those different things that you try also might not work, and not working isn't the end of the world. But they might also inform on another creative outlet.
I agree, and it's great that there are filmmakers that would listen to what a composer has to offer, regardless of what he has done or before, or what he has been specializing on in the eyes of the others. I imagine a filmmaker is bombarded with emails or unsolicited approaches from composers. Have you got many?
It's really interesting you say that, because I think composers, in my experience, have been the most or the best at putting themselves out there. So I did a short film a number of years ago now, and we raised money on Kickstarter to fund the post-production. And the second the Kickstarter project landed on the page, I started getting messages from composers saying, I see you're doing this really interesting project, I see that you're raising money for post-production, just wondering if you've got a composer on board, and if not, then I'd love to offer you my services. And literally I was getting, at 1.3 a day.
Okay.
For a couple of weeks. And I was both impressed and horrified that there were so many composers out there, and this is how hard they had to work in order to, get any kind of response. And I still do through my website get offers from composers, and depending on where I am in a project, I'll listen to, I always like to listen to whatever anybody has got to offer. But of course, the ones that are selected in some form. So, if there are certain communities that they come through, like BAFTA emerging filmmakers or composers or other such selective communities, and of course that the composers of a certain quality, and that obviously helps. I think it's really important that you are very specific and done your research and you want to collaborate with these people, and there should be a reason why you're emailing them. But I don't think that should discourage you from emailing. The problem with email these days is that everybody gets 1,000 emails a day, and not everybody can answer them all.
Okay, let's say you have a new project, and a collaborator of yours that you trust tells you, I know this guy is a great composer, and he tells you the name of the composer. Where do you go first online? Do you look for the composer's website? Do you look for a social page, IMDb, Wikipedia? Is there a particular place where you
Oh, interesting. I think, I'll do a search. I would put their name in Google and see what came up. So if IMDb came up first, then I would click on that. I'm very lazy, to be honest. I'll put their name in. Yeah, whatever's at the top of the page.
Lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wouldn't quite know. Top of the page. If IMDb comes up first, or a SoundCloud page came up first. I wouldn't particularly be interested in their Facebook page or their social media. I'd be much more interested in their work. So who have they worked with? Which isn't necessarily the best indicator of the quality of their work, but it's interesting to know what they've done in the past. The level of professionalism, the level of accomplishment. But most importantly is the sounds that they create.
What is the first thing that you go looking for when you enter a composer's website? Is it a playlist or a showreel or a credit list?
Well, all three of those things are really interesting. You've just labelled the three things that I would be looking for. And I'm not sure in any particular order, as long as they're easy to find and navigate through. Credits, as I said, are important because it just shows the level of accomplishment and the kind of people that this composer has worked with, but doesn't tell you much about their level of or their ability. Other people have thought their ability was good enough to put them on their film. The showreel is really useful to understand as we said, the dialogue between their music and the images and how they have worked with that and what the fine level of execution is. But I also really love just to hear a playlist. I love to hear just music without images, because then I can imagine my own images.
Is there something, some common website feature, or even not too common, that you dislike, something that puts you off, that makes you less keen on hiring the composer?
I don't know if it's less keen on the composer, but look, I mean, yeah, I'm not big on I'm not sure I'm the go-to website developer guide, but I'm not a big fan of click sounds or sounds when you click a button on a website. Sometimes when you click the contact that goes, has a sound to it.
Right.
Or even when you open up a website, that all of a sudden straight away sound comes out. Not the biggest fan of that.
Okay.
But I understand as a composer why one wants to, straight away grab somebody with your wares.
It feels a little imposed.
Yeah, maybe. But look, I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean we are. Yeah.
I'm a filmmaker who hopefully isn't.
You would not cross the name from
No.
from your list
No.
just for that. But maybe subconsciously this is one of those things that would make you cold a little bit.
Maybe.
Okay, cool, makes sense. Okay, let's do this game.
Okay.
Tell me. Yes, let's play a game. You tell me. You imagine the perfect showreel. You're watching this showreel from Mr. X composer, and after watching it, you hire it right away. Aside from great music,
Okay.
What are the features that captivates you, that captures you?
Okay, so what Mr. or Mrs. X has done is he or she has I guess just shown a variety of different genres, of different kinds of composition, and not too long, a minute each maybe, if that, just to give an idea. I mean, for me, with the showreel, it's the key is how the image and the sounds work together, and the music has to really elevate the imagery. And have you seen something in the images that has really elevated it?
Makes sense. Do you like it when there's dialogue and sound effects as well, or would you rather have scenes with just music and visuals?
From a showreel, I think it's perfectly allowed to have the final version with the dialogue and the sound effects. I've seen some where they start with everything and then they strip it back and they take the dialogue out and they take out the sound effects and you're just left with the composition.
Do you like that?
It's interesting.
Okay.
As a filmmaker, it's interesting to see, to hear it, in different ways. But no, I mean, as a filmmaker, I'm able to work out. I like to think what's music and what's sound effect and what's dialogue.
How important it is for you the sound quality of the music you are sent, and I'm not talking about the music that will end on the movie, but I'm talking when you are evaluating whether or not to hire that particular person.
I think it's important. I think like anything, it's important. I mean, if I could, if it, I mean, the problem is these days, you have synthesized sounds, or you have, um, you don't always get a real piano or a real cello or a real, for a composition. But the higher the quality, then obviously the better.
Let's say you ask for one piece of music inspired by the project. Would you rather have a piece of music that only has one musical idea within, but clearly stated, like a melody or a musical realm? Or would you rather have something that shows how this idea it can be developed?
Look, I think each project is individual and it's difficult to know. But I think if we're at the early stage of developing something, if you're just the very beginning of trying to work out what it is that what you're trying to get at, and of course it's not always easy for a filmmaker to communicate to a composer what they are really after here. Some filmmakers just say, look, to a composer, just go and come up with something and then we'll start a conversation. Some filmmakers are much more specific. I like personally, if we're early on in the process, then depending, but why not throw a few different motifs in there, throw a few different ideas. They don't have to be fully formed. They just need to be, different approaches that you might want to take. And then I get to say, okay, I like that aspect of that. I like that aspect of that. No, I mean, why? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you then say, okay, let's play. Let's play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But I've had experiences where I usually like to do the developments version of it, like to give an idea of where the music can go. But I've had clients who didn't like that, who wanted a plain, clean theme. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it depends on how musical you are and how imaginative you can be with what you hear. I don't know, maybe it's that.
Okay, I mean, look, some people like just to have, I guess, maybe a single brief. They're very specific in what they want, and they know exactly what they want, and they just want you to do that for them. And maybe I'm just not that way inclined. I much prefer, in all aspects of filmmaking, to get input from the expert. I'm not the expert. I mean, look, the director is not an expert in anything. Right? The director is simply there to hold as many strands as possible, and I like to think that the best directors hire the best DOPs and the best actors and the best editors and the best composers, so that they can elevate and they trust them to bring their own their creative process to it.
We have the luxury of communicating at great distances with, FaceTime and Skype, and so it happens that you can sometimes collaborate with people that are. I did score a movie in New Zealand while I was in Rome, only going there at the very end when the music was done and accepted, just to record a few instruments, and it was a brilliant experience for me. Do you see yourself working with composers somewhere else in the world through internet?
Why not? Why not? I mean, I love the face-to-face interaction, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. But I don't think that it doesn't preclude you from having a long-distance composer relationship.
Have you ever fired a composer, meaning parted ways with him or her?
I haven't personally, but I've been on projects where composers have been fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
What approach could have that person take to avoid to be fired?
Look, I think also it's if you're in sync with somebody, and sometimes you meet somebody and you think, okay, this is going to be great, and then it doesn't quite work out the way you had hoped. And it's like any relationship. It's like, a romantic relationship. You first meet somebody and it's fireworks.
It's very much like that, I think.
Of course it is. But look,
relationship.
Look, I mean, all of the best relationships, I think, in film are collaborative partner relationships, and And isn't that what a romantic relationship is with the other the other aspect of it being physical? But I think when you're collaborating with somebody creatively, it should be like that kind of relationship. It should be full on, So you're bound to find moments when you fall in love with somebody, and then you also fall out of love with somebody creatively. So I don't know if there's always something that any one person can do. It's just the situation you find yourself in.
And is there one thing a composer should never do when working with you, artistically speaking?
Sure. Throw a chair.
There might be many things, but
no, I can't think of anything, to be honest. I mean, I think if a composer isn't willing to try new things, to try different things, and is very dogmatic about that this is the only way that this should sound, then obviously that's it's not a wise approach as far as I'm concerned, because if the director wants something different, then you're going to have to be able to adapt.
Is there one person that you go to seeking for advice when assessing a composer's music, like for a second opinion, is there a fresh pair of ears that you always go to?
When making a film, always the editor as somebody to talk to, because they're the person that's going to have to work really closely with this composer, with the music, on the film. So I think the editor is a key relationship. I think that's my first collaborator for sure.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Please visit our webpage filmscoringtips.com to find additional resources for this episode. Look for the area labeled Labs if you would like to help us shape our content in the future. There you will be able to send us music, and we will discuss it with our guests on the future episodes of Filmmakers Feedback. To learn more about this and understand what I mean, stick around for the next segment. We asked our audience to score a little piece of music after a text you very kindly wrote for us for the episode. Would you mind reading the text out loud?
Okay, sure. What do we got here? So this was you asked me to write something just as a
little story.
A little story. Let's see. A nondescript hotel room. A woman in her mid-30s opens a door to a confused man of a similar age. They know each other. Why are they meeting here in a hotel room? The man asks. The woman pulls him into the room and sits him down. She offers him a drink from the minibar. She's nervous. He notices. She tells her to spit it out. She does. She's always fancied him, and now that they are both single, she wanted him to know. In case he had feelings for her too. Does he ever? They fall into each other, ripping off their clothes. It's the culmination of years of pent-up sexual tension, and it's glorious. The next morning, they're lying in bed, entwined with each other. He's playing with her hair. He still can't quite believe last night. It's something he's wanted for a very long time. She's quiet, withdrawn. She's got something to tell him, and there's no easy way to say it, so she just blurts it out. She's dying. Terminal cancer. She has weeks, a few months at best. He's devastated, but he puts on a brave face. They hug. And then there were some instructions. So I suggested that anybody were to submit a 3-minute piece of music with a minute focusing on his arrival and her telling him that she fancies him. Then the second minute could be the sex, and the third minute could be the next morning.
We've got some submissions. We're gonna listen a couple of them together, and you can assess them, live as if it was.
Assess them. We'll talk about them. Yes.
Basically, this is the composer you've hired, and he in the first case and she in the second send you this track, and I'm very interested in knowing how you react to it. So this was sent by Mario Pettinati, and I promised on the post that I would read the composer's website or whatever they wanted me to read as an online place. Mario has a YouTube channel. You can search for /Mario Pettinati film composer. I'll put it on for those who are watching the podcast in a video. You will see it both in the comments and on the screen. Okay, so what do you think?
I think it's great. I think it's a really strong starting point for a discussion. I mean, that's what's great about the first track, is that you always get, then that begins the process, that begins the conversation. I think the themes that Mario's playing with are really strong and emotional, and I love the tempo. I love the way in which it does pull you along, and just it's delicate as well. It's got a lot of things. I like it.
Do you like the instruments he used?
Yeah. I love the piano. The piano specifically stands out for me. Yeah, I just felt that it was very delicately put together, specifically the piano. And I can see it certainly being a good starting point for a conversation for that scene.
So good
sure.
chances to be
absolutely.
hired for the job.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. The next one, I'm gonna read the name before, and so that I don't have to stop you from your first impressions after hearing it. The next one is from Giulia Lesnici. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and you can find more of her music on soundcloud.com/jlesnici, and this is the piece she has composed for you.
Wow. So, I mean, look, they're both really strong. I'm really actually blown away as, composers who would submit something on spec like that. Just amazing work. Amazing for a first brief, just from, a few lines of text. Both Julia and Mario, really, really strong stuff. So, for me, this piece went through a whole gamut of emotions. I mean, there's a lot of emotional power in that, and also, as we were discussing before, it did something slightly different to Mario's. Is that it tried a number of different things, and wasn't necessarily as singular in its approach, musically and melodically, and of course, to start a conversation with the director is always useful, because, as we discussed, it gives you a few different handles to say, okay, well, this is
more of that, less of that.
Yeah, more of that, less of that. This is really working. Let's explore that more, right. Or more of that, less of that, basically. To put it crudely, or just I really love the way in which you're going just here, and where else can this go?
Mix these two ideas.
Yeah. Or what if this was not strings but something else? Trumpets, or wind or something. I don't know, but no, I mean it's a really really went on a journey with both of them, and Julia's was also just really so a lot of different things going on, which was for a first track to get is really exciting, because you can
which is what you want, I think,
which is what I personally want, but some
as a composer as well,
yeah,
like you want to produce excitement and discussion, positive, constructive one.
There we go. Constructive feedback. Yeah. No, there was a lot of really great stuff in both of them.
So thank you, Mario and Julia, for submitting. We very much enjoyed listening to your tracks. Alexander, what are your next projects, or current projects, I should say, if you can?
No, of course.
Talk about it.
Really interesting. I'm working on a commission for the BBC for a drama, a 4-part TV drama. Can't really talk much about it at the moment, but it's exciting, and I've never worked in television before, and it's going to be interesting to see how we use music in that, because it's a very specific way in which we're going to have to use music. I want to do more animation, specifically around children's stories, and I really enjoyed working with you on the short films that we did, and hopefully we'll be able to put those out there sooner rather than later. So that's watch this space. That's coming, I hope. And I'm writing a feature film at the moment, and listening to lots of music while I write it. What else? Yeah, I mean, just
that's you have your hands full, I would say.
Yeah, no. Look, always have to have your hands full. But no, I'm always on the lookout for new music.
So this is Alexander email address. No, I'm kidding.
No, sure. Look,
I would be happy to connect you with composers who want to submit their stuff.
Great, well, let's do that.
But then hire me.
That doesn't preclude you from us working together. No, because I mean, look, I really enjoyed working with you, and hope we get to do it much more in the future.
Me too. Yes.
It was. We didn't talk about our process in a funny way, but I mean, our process, I felt like it mirrored each other, and what I really appreciated was, we did a series of short films, and one of the short films you nailed. I mean, just the first time, literally the first track that you sent, we didn't change a note, I don't think.
And as I told you, I think that was a first for me too.
I know. I mean, it was just amazing. I just listened to it, I thought, well, that was brilliant. That's exactly what that should be. And then,
felt nice.
But another one that actually came out brilliantly as well took a lot longer to go backwards and forwards and to have conversations around. And the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, there are elements there that really are working. There are elements there that it's not quite how I anticipated it working, and then we worked with the animators, and we, you know, and then also we brought in the sound mixer, and that was all a wonderful collaborative process. Just really interesting. Same composer, very similar projects, but slightly different films, and just very different working workflows. But both of them same composer and same director, but producer. But it just worked. You know, each one had its own energy. And I think,
that's the beauty of it.
but I think each project has
Variety,
exactly has its own energy, and you've got to kind of let that be its own thing, and not try and, I think, pigeonhole yourself or pigeonhole the project into a certain way.
Alexander, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for
Giovanni, thank you so
coming
much for inviting me.
Yes, and you know, I'm very happy to have you as first guest. I think this will be a lucky charm for the show.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
That's our show for today. Some amazing guests are joining me on the next episodes. One way to be updated on the show's programming is to like and follow our Facebook page. Search for Film Scoring Tips on Facebook and you'll see it. Now, go make amazing music. See you soon.